Hello, hello, wonderful to have you here. In today's video, what I want to do is to describe how we practice Buddhism. Oftentimes in the questions I'm asked, how do I practice as a Buddhist? What do I do? What are the sorts of things I can expect to be asked of me, if you like, or that I can pursue as a Buddhist? Now, in general, as I've said in many of my videos, the point of Buddhism is to live wiser and kinder and calmer lives. That's really our aim. So to an extent, we might say, indeed the Buddha does say at one place, at least in the suttas, that in order to practice, what we want to do is to find things that will help us to live wiser and kinder and calmer lives. That said, over the centuries and millennia after the Buddha's lifetime, a number of different practices have arisen around the world. And what I want to do is to give a broad overview of all of these kinds of practices that we find among Buddhists worldwide. Now, of course, this is too enormous a topic for me to be able to cover it in any real detail. So what I'll be doing here is giving, again, a broad overview to give you an idea of the kinds of things that Buddhists practice with. And I'll be discussing present-day practices in rough order of popularity worldwide. First, and probably most popular, is that many Buddhists have what we might term a faith-based approach, or a confidence-based approach. That is to say, they grow up with faith in the Buddha as an enlightened being, a faith or confidence in the Dharma as teaching a route towards that kind of enlightenment, and faith or confidence in the Sangha of monastics or of teachers as being people who really know about how to lead us there. And given such a faith-based practice, such people may indeed set up, let's say, a small shrine in their homes with images of the Buddha, of bodhisattvas, of deities, or of ancestors, family members who have passed, people to whom they might give prayer or obeisance or different kinds of good thoughts, shall we say. So in this case, the practice might be to give offerings such as flowers or candles to these images, these deities, these ancestors within the home. Or offerings might be given in larger measure to local sanghas, to local temples, or to local worthy causes. It may be in terms of giving money, or it may be in terms of giving food. Traditionally, it was the role of the layperson to give food and clothing and medicine to the monastics in order that they could survive as monastics, because monastics were not allowed to gain those things by themselves. And lay practitioners may also practice by, let's say, chanting, by lighting incense, by bowing or doing prostrations, or by doing similar kinds of acts of generosity. They may also practice by praying to Buddhas, to bodhisattvas, to ancestors, or other kinds of deities in order to gain certain benefits within their lives. And they may do this in their home, in front of their home temple, or I should say their home shrine, or they may go to the local temple to do this. And as well, in Buddhist countries, there are Buddhist festivals, local festivals, in the same way that there are festivals associated with religions in every country. And people will consider part of their practice attending these festivals and engaging in them and enjoying them because they're supposed to be oftentimes fun and interesting. So that is also a way that Buddhists can practice. Now, a lot of the faith-based approach to Buddhist practice involves these kinds of devotional practices. However, there also are relatively non-devotional practices within Buddhism. To begin with, we have the 5 precepts, which are said to apply basically to all Buddhists. These are sort of 5 guidelines for proper action in the world. That is, that we not kill, that we not steal, that we not commit sexual misconduct, that we not lie, and that we not abuse intoxicants. These are ways, they're very simple ways, we might even say they're kind of universal properties of most ethical systems around the world in most religions. That most religions, I would say, have one or another, or really all of these, as their ethical principles. These are not really devotional, they're ways that we can live kinder lives. Ways that we can live calmer lives because we're not upsetting other people by injuring them in various ways, and so also live wiser lives. Instead of, or in addition to devotional practices that I've just mentioned, many Buddhists will also spend time meditating. They will spend time, perhaps even every day, in quiet contemplation or quiet meditation. Another form of meditative practice is the practice of chanting. Chanting has a similar kind of effect as meditation in that it helps to focus and calm our minds. It takes our minds away from the hurly-burly of ordinary life and allows us to calm it down, to focus it, to center it. Now, there are many, many forms of meditation in Buddhism, but perhaps the most famous and well-known is meditation on breathing, on the breath. So one of the primary focuses of much Buddhist practice is spending time focusing on the breath, where we sit quietly in a relatively isolated place, if we can manage it, a quiet place. We can close our eyes or leave our eyes very slightly open and calmly focus on our breath as it comes in and goes out. And we sit focusing on the breath for a period of time, perhaps 5 minutes if that's all we have, perhaps an hour or two if we have that kind of time. But we'll notice when we do this that the mind tends to wander. And so our practice really is one of bringing the mind back to the breath. It's bringing the mind back and bringing the mind back and watching the constant turmoil of the mind and the way that turmoil begins to calm down. Because over time, by following the breath, we'll find that the mind tends to calm. And as it calms, we can see more clearly. We can see more clearly how the mind works. We can see more clearly how we react to things in the world. We can understand more clearly how our own actions in the past or potential actions in the future can be good or bad for us because we're seeing them again more clearly without the overlay of our ordinary kinds of emotional states that sort of cloud them. And in that way, this kind of very simple meditation on the breath can be a very powerful way to gain a calmer life plus a wiser insight into the way we're living our lives. But there are other kinds of meditation as well that we shouldn't overlook within Buddhist practice. There is, for example, loving-kindness meditation, where we attempt to spend time cultivating these healthy emotional states of kindness or of compassion or of sympathetic joy, that is to say, joy in the success of other people, or in equanimity. These kinds of practices of cultivating positive emotional states are a very, very important part of a Buddhist practice. Or we can do a recollection meditation. The Buddha recommends recollection meditations, where we spend time recollecting the character of the Buddha as an enlightened being, or recollecting the Dharma in various degrees, or recollecting parts of the Sangha, the importance of the Sangha and the leadership that it provides, or perhaps recollecting our own beneficial actions in the past. The Buddha recommends that we do this in order to gladden our minds, to give us confidence on the path, that we realize that we too have done good things in the past that we can celebrate in recollecting. Also, there are forms of visualization meditation in many Buddhist schools, where we may spend time visualizing ourselves as various other kinds of being. And these are methods that we can use to sort of break down our ordinary tendency to see ourself as a monolithic entity that's always a certain way, because we can visualize ourselves as being somebody else for a while. So these can also be very beneficial meditations. Also, there are meditations that are more serious and perhaps dire. Meditations on death, for example. Meditations on decay that can help us to understand the fact that change is eternal, that change always happens, that things are going to pass away. And sometimes a meditation on death may be the sort of thing we don't want to do, but sometimes it could be the sort of thing that gives us real energy in our practice. Buddhists may also practice by going on meditation retreats. That is longer periods of time where we can spend in meditation because we're not home, we're at a place somewhere else where we're being, to an extent, taken care of. And these retreats can be from a day to a weekend to a week to a month to even longer. They can be very, very long. And these are methods that we can use to gain very, very deep states of meditation that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to have time to do when we're, let's say, living at home in an ordinary kind of environment. They can give us a deeper exposure to the Dharma and to practice in a way that we wouldn't be able ordinarily to manage. Now, we should be aware that meditation retreats of this kind, particularly within the lay community, are a relatively recent invention, really probably in the last 100 years. Before that, really, it wasn't the case that lay people would go on retreat anywhere. That was not a common practice at all. And really, retreats were not particularly important for monastics as well. I mean, monks and nuns would meditate as a matter of course, at least some of the time. In some schools they would, in other schools they wouldn't. But in any event, retreats are a modern invention, but there's nothing wrong with that. And still others may practice by learning or studying the Dharma, or by, let's say, learning or studying particular suttas or books or texts, or by studying from teachers, either of the distant past or present teachers that they can learn from. And within Buddhist history, there's at times been tension between these two manners of practice, or these various manners of practice. That study is one thing, and let's say meditation is something else, and that people will prefer one over the other and say meditation's better than study, or devotion is better than study, or meditation's better than devotion. These kinds of arguments come up oftentimes in Buddhist circles. But I would suggest that we should not pay them any heed. There are many different ways to practice Buddhism, many different roads. Some may be slower, some may be quicker, some may be right for you, and others may be wrong for you. Also keep in mind that one of the best ways to practice is to find a local center or group that you can practice with, that gives you companionship along the path. That is enormously helpful. And if you find a group that you think is congenial, then having joined it, the people who are in charge of that group likely will have a path for you. That is to say, they'll be able to suggest practices that they think are most useful to people along the kind of path that you have chosen. Now, if you join such a center and then find that it isn't congenial, or for whatever reason it rubs you the wrong way, I would encourage you to consider trying something else. Try a different center if one is available. Nowadays, so much is available on the internet that we can oftentimes look for places that maybe not be local to us, but can provide us something, at least online, that we wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And I did a recent video on constructing a daily practice for yourself, in which I try to outline a number of possibilities that you can do on a day-to-day basis to construct such a practice. And I'll leave a link to that video here on the screen if you haven't seen it and would like to see it. If you're getting something out of this video and these videos of mine, consider taking a look over at my Patreon page and helping to support the work that we're all doing here. Thanks so much to all of my patrons on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.